The afternoon sun hung low in the sky, making the small town of Willow Creek glow like a painting. Leaves skittered across the sidewalks, and the air smelled like pumpkins and wood smoke. It was the kind of day that made you want to stay outside forever. Leela Parker tightened her backpack straps as she walked home from school. Her shoes crunched over dry leaves, and her breath made little clouds in the cool air. She had math homework to finish, but she wasn't in a hurry. Not yet. As she passed by the Willow Creek bank, she noticed a small crowd gathering near the entrance. Curious, Leela slowed down and looked. At first, she couldn't tell what was going on. Then she spotted him. An old man stood just outside the bank's glass doors. His gray coat was too big and hung off his thin shoulders like a heavy blanket. His boots were worn and muddy, and his hands shook a little as he clutched an old brown hat. His face was tired, and his eyes looked even more tired, like he had carried too many sad stories for too long. Some people walking by wrinkled their noses or looked away quickly. A few teenagers nearby giggled and whispered to each other, pointing at him. Leela felt her stomach twist. She hated when people laughed at others. Inside the bank, the tellers pretended not to notice the old man, but the manager, a tall man in a sharp blue suit, stared at him through the glass with a frown. He said something to the security guard, who nodded and moved toward the door. The old man took a few slow steps inside, his boots squeaking softly on the floor. His hat shook in his hand as he moved toward the counter, but before he could even speak, the security guard grabbed him roughly by the arm. "Sir, you need to leave," the guard said loudly, his voice sharp like broken glass. The old man mumbled something, but no one listened. In seconds, the guard and another man shoved him back outside. The old man stumbled, almost falling, before catching himself against the brick wall. His hat fell to the ground. Someone nearby laughed. Another person pulled out their phone to take a video. Leela stood frozen, her heart heavy in her chest. Something about this didn't feel right at all. The old man stood outside the bank, looking lost. His hat, now dirty from the ground, sat near his feet. He bent down slowly to pick it up, his back stiff like it hurt to move. People kept walking by, some giving him quick, disgusted looks, others pretending not to see him at all. Leela hugged her backpack tighter. She wanted to do something, but she didn't know what. She watched as the bank manager came out next, his shiny shoes tapping loudly against the pavement. He crossed his arms and stared at the old man like he was a piece of trash someone had left behind. "You were told not to come back here," the manager said in a cold voice. "I just needed to speak with someone," the old man said quietly, almost in a whisper. His voice cracked like dry wood breaking. The manager shook his head sharply. "We don't allow loitering. If you don't leave now, the police will be called." The old man opened his mouth like he wanted to explain, but no words came out. His shoulders slumped. He clutched his hat to his chest and started to shuffle away. As he turned, a group of teenagers standing near the curb started laughing. One of them, a tall boy in a black hoodie, said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Smells like the garbage took itself out." The others burst into cruel laughter. The old man flinched but kept walking, slow and stiff. Leela's face burned with anger. How could they be so mean? How could everyone just stand there and do nothing? She took a step forward, but stopped. She was just a kid. What could she do? The security guards returned to the doorway, watching the old man until he was nearly out of sight. The manager gave a satisfied nod, like a problem had been cleaned up. Leela felt a lump in her throat. It wasn't just what had happened. It was the way everyone acted, like it was normal, like it was okay to throw someone away, just because they looked old and poor. The old man paused at the edge of the parking lot. He looked back once, his eyes searching the faces of the people who had just watched him get thrown out. No one met his gaze. They looked at their phones, at their coffee cups, at anything but him. Leela looked straight at him. Their eyes met for a second, just a second, but it was enough. She saw something in his face. Not anger, not even sadness, just tiredness. The kind of tiredness that went deeper than the bones, deeper than anything words could fix. And then he turned and walked away, into the gathering shadows of the evening. Leela stood there, heart pounding, feeling smaller than she ever had before. Something about today was going to stay with her for a long, long time. That night, Leela sat at the kitchen table, stirring her soup without eating. The warm smell of carrots and onions filled the room, but she barely noticed. Her mind kept going back to the old man at the bank. The way he looked, the way everyone treated him, and the way he had walked away so slowly, as if carrying a weight too heavy to lift. Her grandmother, Nana June, sat across from her, knitting a scarf with soft, steady hands. She glanced up at Leela and smiled gently. "You're awful quiet tonight, honey. Something bothering you?" Leela hesitated. She wasn't sure if she should bring it up, but the lump in her chest felt too heavy to keep inside. "There was this man," Leela finally said, "at the bank. They threw him out like he was nothing. He looked so sad, Nana." Nana June set her knitting needles down and leaned closer. "What did he look like?" Leela described him: the big gray coat, the worn boots, the way he clutched his hat like it was all he had left in the world. For a moment, Nana June's face changed, her eyes softened, and her mouth pulled into a tight line, like she was remembering something painful. "That sounds like Mr. Thomas," Nana said softly. "Poor man. You know him?" Leela asked, surprised. Nana nodded slowly. "Everyone used to know Mr. Thomas. He wasn't always like that. He used to be one of the most important men in town." Leela blinked. "Really? But he looked so poor." "Life can be cruel sometimes," Nana said, stirring her tea. "Mr. Thomas served in the war. He came back a hero, built businesses, helped this town grow, even helped start the very bank you saw him tossed out of." Leela's mouth dropped open, but after his wife passed, Nana continued, things started to fall apart. A few bad investments, some dishonest people who took advantage of his trust. Before he knew it, everything he built was gone. And people here, well, they forgot. They see a man who's poor and think he's no one. Leela felt something heavy settle in her chest. How could people forget so easily? How could they turn their backs on someone who had given so much? "I wish I could do something," Leela whispered. Nana June smiled gently. "Sometimes, noticing is the first step, darling. Most people walk right past and never even see." Leela squeezed her spoon tight. She wasn't sure how yet, but she knew one thing for sure: she wasn't going to just forget Mr. Thomas. Not like everyone else had. The next morning, Leela woke up with a strange kind of energy buzzing inside her. She ate breakfast faster than usual, barely tasting her cereal. She had made up her mind. She needed to learn more about Mr. Thomas. At school, during lunch, she sat with her best friend Emma, under the big oak tree. Kids laughed and ran around them, but Leela leaned in and whispered, "Do you know anything about Mr. Thomas? The old man people call Crazy Tom?" Emma wrinkled her nose. "I mean, I see him around. He's kind of creepy, right?" Leela frowned. "I don't think he's creepy. I think something bad happened to him." Emma shrugged. "My brother says he used to be rich or something, but he messed up and now he's just like that." Leela didn't like how people talked about him, like he didn't matter. She decided to ask someone who would really know. After school, Leela went to the town library. The building smelled like old books and lemon polish. She loved it there. Miss Carter, the librarian, was shelving books behind the counter. She was old but kind, with hair like silver clouds. Leela walked up nervously. "Miss Carter, can I ask you something?" Miss Carter smiled warmly. "Of course, dear. Did you ever know Mr. Thomas? I mean before." Miss Carter's hands paused. A faraway look crossed her face. "Mr. Harold Thomas," she said softly. "Yes, I knew him well. Everyone did." She led Lila to a corner of the library, filled with old newspapers and photo albums. Together, they looked through the dusty pages. There he was, Mr. Thomas, in black and white photos, smiling proudly next to the ribbon cutting of Willow Creek Bank. Another photo showed him shaking hands with the mayor at a town festival. There were even pictures of him in uniform during the war, standing tall and brave. "He built this town in ways people have forgotten," Miss Carter said, shaking her head. "He helped veterans find jobs. He gave loans to farmers when no one else would." Leela stared at the smiling man in the pictures. It was hard to believe it was the same person she saw yesterday, shivering in a worn-out coat. "But what happened to him?" Leela asked. Miss Carter sighed. After his wife passed, he trusted the wrong people. A businessman he called a friend tricked him into signing away his fortune. Then the bank he built pushed him out. Quietly, no one wanted to admit it. It made everyone feel guilty. Leela felt her throat tighten. Mr. Thomas wasn't some nobody. He wasn't someone to be laughed at or thrown away. He was a hero, and nobody seemed to care anymore. As she closed the photo album, Leela knew one thing for sure. This story needed to be told. Mr. Thomas deserved better. Much better. The next few days felt strange in Willow Creek. At first, everything stayed the same. People rushed past Mr. Thomas without looking. The bank stood tall and shiny, pretending nothing had happened. But Leela couldn't stay quiet. She had an idea, a big one, and she was nervous, but she knew it was the right thing to do. With Nana June's help, Leela wrote a letter to the local news station. She told them everything: how Mr. Thomas had been treated, what she had learned about his past, and how wrong it was for everyone to just forget him. Nana June even scanned the old photos from the library to send along. "I don't know if they'll listen," Nana said, "but sometimes all it takes is one voice." A few days later, the story broke. It started small. A reporter named Maggie Cruz from Channel 7 News showed up at the library, asking questions. She interviewed Miss Carter, and then a few older townspeople who remembered Mr. Thomas's better days. Then someone posted the video online, the one where the bank guards tossed him out. It spread faster than anyone expected. "Bank tosses out war hero. Founder of Willow Creek Bank ignored by community," the headline screamed. In just a day, the whole town was buzzing. At the diner, people whispered in angry tones. At school, kids passed around their phones, showing the video over and over. Even the mayor made a statement, his face red and sweaty on TV, saying it was a terrible misunderstanding, and promising to look into it. The bank's manager tried to explain it away in an interview, saying we didn't recognize him, but the damage was done. People didn't buy the excuses anymore. Mr. Thomas's story, the real one, was out there now. People finally saw the man they had ignored, and they were furious, not just at the bank, but at themselves. A group of veterans from a nearby town came to Willow Creek and stood outside the bank holding signs, "Honor our heroes and respect, not rejection." Donations started pouring in. People who had never even met Mr. Thomas wanted to help him get back on his feet. Leela watched it all happen, feeling a strange mix of hope and sadness. She was happy that people cared now, but it hurt to know it had taken so long. It hurt that someone had to be broken and humiliated before anyone noticed. At least now, she thought, things might finally change. At least now, Mr. Thomas would be seen. Really seen. The next week felt like a storm in Willow Creek. Signs appeared in front of the bank overnight, hand-painted ones that said things like, "Shame on you" and "Honor Mr. Thomas." People who once ignored Mr. Thomas now stood outside every morning, holding posters and handing out flyers. The bank tried to act like it wasn't a big deal at first. They put out a short apology online, but it didn't feel real. It felt like someone forced them to say sorry. That only made people angrier. Finally, one afternoon, the bank's board of directors fired the manager. It was announced on the local news, "Bank manager removed," after public outcry. When Leela heard, she didn't feel happy exactly. It wasn't about revenge. It was about doing the right thing. About standing up for someone who couldn't stand up for himself anymore. Meanwhile, the donations kept growing. A retired builder offered to fix up an old house on Main Street to give Mr. Thomas a proper place to live. Others promised to help pay for groceries and clothes. For the first time in a long time, Mr. Thomas wasn't alone. One Saturday morning, Willow Creek organized a special event, not a protest, but a gathering, just for Mr. Thomas. It was held in the town square, under the big oak tree where festivals were usually celebrated. People came with cards, blankets and flowers. Some came just to say they were sorry. When Mr. Thomas walked into the square, wearing a clean jacket and his old brown hat, the whole crowd clapped for him. He didn't smile much. It was like he had forgotten how, but his eyes filled with tears. Leela watched from the front row, feeling her own throat get tight. One by one,
People stepped forward to shake his hand or hug him. Some were strangers, some were the same people who had once looked away when he needed them most. And Mr. Thomas, he forgave them, every single one. With a small nod and a quiet thank you, he accepted their apologies, not because they deserved it, but because holding on to anger would have only made his heart heavier. Leela knew it right then. Mr. Thomas wasn't just brave because he fought in a war. He was brave because he chose kindness, even after the world had been so cruel. A few weeks passed, and Willow Creek didn't look quite the same anymore. The leaves had fallen from the trees, and the air smelled like cold rain and chimney smoke. People still went about their days, but something had shifted. They paused more, looked people in the eye, said hello to strangers, and almost every day, someone stopped by to check on Mr. Thomas. His new house wasn't big, but it was warm, clean, and filled with little gifts from neighbors, blankets, books, fresh bread. A few veterans helped fix the roof and build a ramp so he wouldn't trip on the porch. Leela and Nana June visited once a week. Leela brought him cookies, or a drawing, or just a simple smile. At first, Mr. Thomas didn't say much, but over time he started to talk. Slowly, like pulling memories from deep water. He told them about his wife, Mary, and how she used to sing in the mornings. He shared stories from the war, about bravery and fear. He talked about the bank, how proud he once was, and how hard it was to watch it slip away. But he also talked about forgiveness. "I thought the world forgot me," he said one afternoon, sitting in his worn chair. "But maybe it just needed a little reminder." Leela smiled. "You reminded them by being you," he chuckled softly. "No, little one, you reminded them." One cold Saturday, the mayor called a special town meeting. A new plaque was placed in front of the bank, one that read, "In honor of Harold Thomas, veteran, builder, believer in Willow Creek. May we always remember, and never look away again." People clapped and some cried. Mr. Thomas stood beside Leela, his hat pressed to his chest. This time, when people looked at him, they really saw him. Leela felt proud, but not just for Mr. Thomas. She was proud of her town, for opening its eyes, for listening, for changing. Later that night, she wrote in her journal, "Sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms anymore. Sometimes they wear old coats and walk with tired feet. But we still need to see them. We still need to listen. And maybe the world gets better, one person at a time, one act of kindness, one truth spoken out loud." Outside her window, the streetlights glowed soft and golden. In the distance, a porch light flicked on, and in that warm little house on Main Street, Mr. Thomas sat quietly, reading a letter from someone who once walked past him without a word. Now they were saying, "Thank you,